Hello, Yaakov. Oh. Hi, Norm.
Hi, Mario.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Hello, Harold.
Hello. All right. Yeah, where are we? What page?
241
241.
or 240.
Hello.
Okay, good. Okay.
Hi, Yaakov.
Hello. What page are we on? Just missed the last one.
I could mark 241, but I don't know if
Uh-huh.
he will start there or start in 243.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Chaim.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Avi.
Everybody. I believe we're on page 243.
Okay.
We left off talking about Tashlumim. And we said that even if you miss Mincha, as long as you missed you're missing was unintentional, you can have tashlumin to the next Ma'ariv. I'm gonna review based on page 242. If he thought he would have time to pray after he finished business, but ultimately did not, this is not considered intentional. So that means if you were involved in, you thought that you'd have enough time, you were occupied in some business, that would allow you to do tashlumin. The Trumas Hadeshen says that if you missed a tefillah because you were trying to prevent financial loss, it still qualified you for tashlumin. The Ramah says, l'chatchila, you shouldn't do it for financial issues. The Mishnah Berurah said, if you were selling merchandise, and that's why you missed mincha, that's not considered intentional, and you would qualify for tashlumim. That if you were an onei and potter for mitzvahs, you would not do tashlumim. But if you were involved in tzorchei tzibur, you don't do tashlumim according to Magen Avraham. According to the Taz, he's not exempt. He's just an ones, and you must do tashlumim. And the Mishnah Berurah compromises and says that if you're doing tzorchei tzibur, you should do tashlumim, but do it as a voluntary tfilas nedava. That was what we learned last week. So 243. We saw in source 1 that a person prays the tashlumim in conjunction with the tefillah immediately following the one that was missed. Thus, one who missed Shachris recites Shmona Esrei twice at Mincha. The Gemara in Brachos, in the continuation of that source, also presents two additional details. One recites Tashlumin even when the original tefillah cannot be recited in its normal form. Let's say you omitted the Friday afternoon weekday Mincha, in which case the Tashlum is recited together with Shabbos Ma'ariv. The Shabbos Ma'ariv tefillah is different than the one you missed, but you would say two Shmona Esreis of Shabbos Ma'ariv. As explained by Rashi, the Gemara indicates the first tefillah, the mincha that you missed Friday afternoon, is the standard tefillah. Example, mincha if one omitted chakras. And the second one serves as the tashlumin in place of the one that was missed. That means the second davening is the tashlumin. The first davening is, let's say it's mincha, and you had missed chakras, and you were going to do two Shmona Esreis. The first mincha is the regular mincha, and the second Shmona Esrei that you daven would be the tashlumin for the chakras. Let's see it in the Gemara. Torah Rabbanan Tov L'Ispal Mincha Be'erev Shabbos Mispal B'Lo Shabbos Shtayim. You would say two Friday nights Ataki Dashta. You don't. The second Tashlumim Shmona Esrei is not regular Shmona Esrei. It's Friday night. It's Friday night Ma'ariv. Tov L'Ispal Mincha B'Shabbos Mispal B'Motzei Shabbos Shtayim Shel Chol. You don't. If you miss Mincha of Shabbos afternoon, and you do two Ma'ariv tefillas, you do regular Ma'ariv of Chol. And very interesting, Mavdil B'Rishoyna, Ve'enu Mavdil B'Shniya. You say Atachoin Antanu in Ma'ariv of Motzei Shabbos, but you don't do it in the second one, because the second one was the Tashlumim for the Mincha that you missed. Im Yivdil B'Shniya V'lo Yivdil B'Rishona, Shniya also lo, Rishona lo also lo. You would have to the second Shmona, the first Shmona Esrei, you had not committed your chiyuv. By the second one you did, you did the Havdalah. But that Shmona Esrei that would count as the Tashlumim, even if you added the Yatachon Antanu there. But you wouldn't get credit for the first Shmona Esrei because if you're not Mavdil in Motzei Shabbos, you have to repeat the Shmona Esrei. Says Rashi, Mavdil B'Rishonim, upon Rishonim is Pal B'Shvil Tfil Shalachra, Lefi Chachomer B'Avdol B'Chonin Adas, Vashniya B'Shvil Tashlum Tfil Shabbos, Eno Mavdil Ba. Shniya also low. What does that mean? That the second counts. B'Shvil Tfilas Motzei Shabbos. Rishona lo also lo sheina klum. The first Shmona Esrei which you didn't say Atach doesn't count for anything. She'enu la'agdim tefillah she'ovar zmona l'tefillah she'zmona aksha. It's as if you were trying to daven the tashlumin before the one that was not, the one that was required to be done now. Vashniya nami lo also lo shel Shabbos. Hoyel v'hivdil bo gila daita she'en shel Shabbos. You didn't fulfill the tashlumim of what missed, that you missed mincha Shabbos afternoon. It's going to be v'tichoshev l'shalarvis. Rashi explains the fact that the Gemara requires Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos to be said specifically during the first Shmona Esrei. It proves that it counts as Mariv, the proper one for this time, and the Tashlumin prayer must be said afterwards. The reason is that Chazal did not establish the Tashlumin prayer as a prayer on its own, but only as a supplement to the tefillah that the person was obligated to say anyways. Now, that's the Gemara with Rashi's commentary. How does the Shulchan Aruch paskin? He rules that even b'di'evet, this order of reciting the regular tefillah first, and then the tashlumim prayer is necessary. Ta oinenas v'lo yispalo shachris. A person, for some reason, missed tefillah shachris. Mispalo mincha shtayim. You say two Shmona Esrei is mincha. Harishona is the mincha. V'ashniya l'tashlumim. V'mhi pech, if you reverse that, lo yotzi de tefillah shi tashlumim. You don't get the tashlumim obligation. V'tzarech lachzor l'spal osa. V'chein adin b'chol mokem shetzarech l'spal tefillah tashlumim. The Mishnah Berurah clarifies in some of some aspects of this halach. Harishoina mincha means if you daven two amidas for mincha because you miss chakras, kitzarach lagdim tefillah she'ichoy v'shah l'tefillas l'tashlumim. The first tefillah that you should daven is the one that is required for this period of time, which is the mincha. V'im hipich perush. We're talking about here a kavana problem. When you started davening the Shmona Esrei, you had in mind the first Shmona Esrei to be tashlumim. That was an improper thought, and therefore lo yotza. The lo tiknu Rabbanan ashlam el bizmani taskus betfilah chiyuvis v'lo kodem l'kein. Chachamim, when they made the tashlumim, they wanted it to be a supplement to the obligatory tefillah of that time, which is the mincha. V'yesh mefakpakin loymar shein tzarech lachzor lispalel elam ken gila daito befeirush betfilaso she'ashniya l'shem chova rishon tashlumim. Some question, maybe you don't have to be chayzer and daven again, unless you enunciated clearly in his davening that the second Shmona Esrei was l'chova and the first one was l'tashlumim. When is that? Kigon shumotzi Shabbos. V'hivdil b'shniya v'lo hivdil b'rishona. Then you clearly, b'peh mole, show that you had the wrong kavanah. Ulinyan dina, what's the practice? Because of a pre-chodesh v'aprimagodim, she'ein lanu ala divrei mechaber. We have the words of the mechaber. The sons of Rav, the Divrei Chaim, says you follow Shulchan Aruch. Mikol makam tov yoter shebeit shechozer mispalel, because you have to now daven again. Yisne v'yomer, you should make a t'nai and say im eini mechuyev lispalel pam shenis, ani mispalel also b'toras l'dava. If for some reason halacha is not like this, and I was not really obligated, let it be accepted as it's feeling the dova. Let's say you the first mincha, Shmona Esrei, you had in mind mincha. And the second one, you had in mind the tashlumim. But the first one, you made a mistake. For example, Lo Amar Botein Talumoter, where the din is, you have to repeat Shmona Esrei. Often it's klauser. You didn't remember this until after you had davened the second davening. Even though your first Shmona Esrei was not perfect, it still was in the format as an attachment to the chiyuv, and therefore you get credit for the tashlumim. Now you got to daven a third Shmona Esrei to cover yourself for the first Shmona Esrei that you violated because you didn't say the same talamoter, right? And even though the tefillah was mistaken, it's not considered as if you didn't daven at all. You shouldn't be called malkum. When you attach the tashlum, the second Shmona Esrei, it certainly was still the zman tefillah. It'll apply in any, whether it's Yalav V'Yavo or any of the other mistakes that you make in Shmona Esrei that require you to repeat a Shmona Esrei. The din would follow the same. You'd have to repeat that Shmona Esrei, but the Tashlumim, if you did it in the right order, would still apply. So we see that the Mishnah Berurah teaches us some new details. If one thought that the first tefillah was for Tashlumim, but never said so explicitly, one must still repeat the tefillah for tashlumim. But it's preferable to add a condition that if one is not really obligated, it should be considered a voluntary tefillah. Now, if one recited the first tefillah as the obligatory one, but made a mistake that requires it to be repeated, one still fulfills the tashlumim player recited efforts. It's just a summary of what we just explained. The Mishnah Berurah also discusses whether a shliach tzibur can consider his repetition of the Amidah as a tashlumim prayer. He writes that the shliach tzibur may do so if he himself missed the previous tefillah, but others do not fill tashlumim by listening to the shliach tzibur repetition, unless the tashlimin is for Mariv. So if you missed Mariv, then the Shliach Tzibur's repetition of Shachris would be fulfillment of the Tashlumim, even for somebody not the Shliach Tzibur. Right? Ukeshushatz Yotzi de Ashlama, the Masha Mazra at Tfilah B'Kol Ram, Yichavin Ba, Shvilat Tzmul Tashlumim, Gabla Hotzi Ba, Yishin Abokir. Meaning, let's say you are the Shliach Tzibur for Mincha, and you as the Shliach Tzibur happen to miss that morning's Shachris. So you say your own private silent Amidah, that's for your Mincha. And now when you recite it, B'Kol Ram as the Shliach Tzibur, you can have in mind that it's Tashlumin for your Shachris that you missed. And you're being motzi the people that are not Baki in the audience. So you're filling two roles. That's one thing that the Mishnah Berurah says. Shtayim, ve'ein daishi chavin lishmo mishatz v'latzeis pa b'shvilat smol etashlumin bein avur arvis or shachris. It's not enough that if you're in the audience listening to the Shliach Tzibur and you want to fulfill tashlumim, whether it's for arvis or shachris, excuse me. It's Why was the tefillah shliach tzibur created? For people who don't know how to read Hebrew, not for this tashlumim business. If, for example, you had missed Arvis in the morning, you could use it. That b'di'eved, if someone is expert at davening, you're not yotze b'chazras hashatz. Because makom b'zeh shehil tashlumim b'shvil tefillas arvis she'rishus kila. They were makel for tefillas marvis, because arvis is not like chakras and mincha. As a choiva, it's really a rishus. Now, what kind of pause should you do between the tefillos of Shemona Esrei that you're doing for tashlumim? You want to recite it immediately after the next required tefillah. Nevertheless, the Gemara in Bracha says that there must be a short separation between the tefillahs, so that one can prepare himself properly for the second one. Kama yishe ben tefillah. How much should you wait? You have to put your mind right to be a requester. That also that you should beseech Hashem. The word eschanan means to daven. Moshe means Moshe daven. Rashi explains that this discussion is referring to a person who recites tashlumim after getting a tefillah, or to reciting Shachris and Musaf together on Shabbos. Rashi also writes that the two opinions do not disagree with each other, but rather express the same idea with different words. Kama yisha ben tefillah l'tefillah, misha yeshel av lachzor l'tefillah, o mishum l'tor mishum musafim. Kama yisha ben, let's say he was going to daven musaf right after Shachris. How much does he have to wait in between? So what's the difference between tischoinen and tischoilel? He should put his words together in a pleading way. And lashon chilu v'hi, it's the same. Plugging. They just disagree with what language it should be. Should it be tischoilel or tischoinen? Now, how long is the measurement of time that it takes to be in a pleading or beseeching mode? Tosfos writes that according to the Rishalmi, it's the amount of time necessary to walk 4 amas. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch rules. Says the time it takes to walk 4 amas. Here, the Shulchan Aruch is referring to a pause between two tefillos, such as Shachris and Musaf. Later, when explicitly addressing Tashlumim, the Shulchan Aruch reconfirms the ruling, adding that one recites Ashrei between the tefillos. Tov lo ispalal arvis, mispalal Shachris shtayim, harishona Shachris, v'abez Tashlumim, la'achar she'omer yoitzer, v'yitchas brachos. After you say the brachos Kriya Shema and the Shemona Esrei, yomer Ashrei. Here the Shulchan Aruch is adding something that you should daven an Ashrei. Like you missed Mincha, and you can have 2 Shemona Esreis in Ma'ariv. Yomer Ashrei ben tefillah l'tefillah. The Mishnah Berurah explains that one should not interrupt in between 2 tefillahs in any other manner, other than with the Chazoras Hashatz that follows the first Shemona Esrei, Tachanun at Shachris and Mincha, and Ashrei, which should always be recited before the second tefillah. So we're getting a structure of the Tashlumim. If someone missed Ma'ariv, and you're now in Shachris the next morning, and you said your silent Shemona Esrei, you have to listen to the shots. You have to say Tachanun, as you say Tachanun in Shachris, and Ashrei, and then, only then, do you say the second Shemona Esrei for the Tashlumim. Everybody get that? Let's see the Mishnah Berurah inside. Lachar she'omer ritzon loymar shlo yafsik lechatchila beineim b'shum davar v'afilu b'limud aser. You shouldn't do anything else, even learning between the two davenings. Ki tfilas hashlama tzricha liyos b'oid shoisek b'tfilah chiyuvis. It's got to be immediately following your obligatory tefillah. Mikol makom, nearly the chazar shots shall tefillah chiyuvis. You should at least let the shots finish reciting b'kol ram, the shachros or the mincha, right? Mutter lishmoya kodim. You're allowed to listen to that. The zeh mikri adayin oisek b'tefillah. Of course, yud ches brachas b'tol im atachnun shomer akri zeh. Dein lafsik ben yud ches l'tachanun. You should remember, Tachanun should immediately follow the Tefillah Chiyuvit. Tachanun is like a silent, sitting Shemona Esrei. Therefore, it's always going to be next to, immediately following the shots. And if you said a second Shemona Esrei, you'd be mafsik between that Tachanun. So you got to say the Tachanun. And Yomer Ashrei. Because you want to enter into this tashlumim properly, you should do it with an ashrei. You've got to say ashrei before lam natzech leval tzion, so he should say it, and you don't have to repeat it. Bishvil Hashlama, meaning if you miss Shachris in the morning and you're now doing two minchas, you should listen to the Chazras Hashatz of mincha. You should do Tachanun, and then even though you said Ashrei at the start of mincha, Yomer Gam Kain Odapam Ashrei, Koidem Tfilah Ashniya, before reciting this other Tashlumim Shmona Esrei. Kol Zehu Rak Lechatchila. Aval midina in tzarich hafsaka ben tefillah letefillah. Make or adin, you don't need such hafsaka. Rak kedei hiluch dal damos. K'mar shekosov le'el. Lechatchila, this is how you should do it. You don't have to take a break any more time than it needs to walk 4 amas. So, accordingly, one who is reciting a tefillah's tashlumim should first recite the regular Shemona Esrei, listen to the Chazaras Hashatz, recite Tachanun, Ashrei. What about if there's laning in the morning? But let's fine. And then recite the Tefillah's Tashlumim. However, one should not interrupt in any other way for more than the time it takes to walk 4 amas or recite a chapter of Tehillim to enable having the proper concentration. We mentioned above that Chazal established the Tashlumim prayer as being a continuation of the tefillah that is obligatory at that time. But one cannot pray Tashlumim at a time other than that of an obligatory prayer. And this is recorded in the Shulchan Aruch. Da'ad misham tefillah she'ifsid, davka bizman tefillah. Avol b'shah she'en zman tefillah lo. You have to do it at a time of tefillah. What is the halacha if one did not recite the tashlumim immediately following the regular tefillah? May it still be recited as long as the time for the obligatory tefillah has not passed? The Mishnah Berurah writes that according to the majority of authorities, one may technically recite the Shemona Esrei of Tashlumim until the latest time for the reciting the current tefillah, even if it is not recited immediately following the obligatory Shemona Esrei. Meaning, you're davening an early mincha, but mincha, let's say tonight was 4:50 was the deadline where you had to finish mincha. So if you beyond 4:50, you would not be able to say the Tashlumim. Nevertheless, he concludes that since some disagree, it is best to add a stipulation to the Tashlum tefillah saying that if it is not effective, the tefillah should count as a voluntary one. That means if you don't do it immediately following the tefillah that was a chiyuv, that's what he's talking about. Bizman tefillah yesh ma'achronim shekosvu Sheritzon Lomar de lo tiknu Chazal tefillas hashloma, that Chazal only were misaking this tefillah rak bodenu osek betfiloso ha'ikarit. You're occupied in the ikr tefillah of that time. Achar sheshah kedei hiluk dal damas o asher b'tayim. Of course, you've got to let enough time go by for walking dal damas or saying ashrei. Arvalei harbe echronim miskinu. Daf lechatchila b'vaday tzarich lizar b'zel yispal tefillas hashloma tekav achar tefillah chiyuvis. The chatchila, you should try to do it that way. But the evident ma'akev, rakim over zman tefillah. That means if you daven mincha 3 o'clock and you forgot to say the tashlumim, you could say as long as the zman mincha has not passed, you could b'di'eved say the tashlumim. The hainu lo yispal arvis. Or let's say if you missed Ma'ariv and you're in the morning, and you spalish shachris time, raka dalat shas alayom shuzman tefillah the shachris. You would be, let's say, you didn't daven your two Shemona Esreis right back to back, but if you recognize an hour later, oh, I didn't say my tashlumim. As long as the 4th hour of the day had not passed, but you'd be able to do it. Kolzei takti min achronim ledina. Amnan lechatchila yoter nochon b'chol lo yispalo teket tefillas hashlama achar tefillah chiyuvis yispalo also b'torach nedava. And this is what the Mishnah Berurah added here, that if you did not do it right away after the Shemona Esrei and you waited an hour, but it's still within the zman of that period, he says you should do it b'toras nedava. The hainu sheyisne, you should make it tnai v'yoymar. If I'm obligated to this tashlumim, then let it go for my obligation. V'im lav arehi nedava. V'chein hiskima prima godim. The prima godim agreed with this. So l'chura, that's how the Mishnah Berurah paskins. May tashlumim be recited only at the immediately succeeding tefillah. The Rishonim disagree about whether the tashlumim prayer may be recited at the tefillah, which is two services later than the one forgotten. For example, to make up shachris at mincha, to make up shachris at Ma'ariv, or mincha at shachris. Does it have to be the immediate tefillah following, or maybe it could be 2 tefillahs following? The Tur presents the opinion of the Bahag, according to which one way may recite tashlumim from 2 tefillahs prior, as long as they're in the same halachic day. For example, reciting tashlumim at mincha for Ma'ariv and shachris. It means you missed Ma'ariv from the previous night. This is mincha is now 2 tefillahs away. You could do it because mincha, Ma'ariv, and shachris are all in the same halachic calendric day, because the day doesn't switch until Ma'ariv after that mincha. Kosav bal halachos gdoilas. This is the tour. Tov lo yispal arvis, yispal shachris beis, he can make his tashlumim in chakras. Shachach v'lo yispal chakras. If he forgot the tashlumim and didn't do it in chakras, yispal b'mincha. Gimel. So he also, let's say we're talking about he missed Ma'ariv and chakras. So he davens 3 of them in mincha. Betchila mispal shel mincha. Achakach chakras, v'achakach arvis of the previous night. Rotzoloi mar kozman shloi over hayom. Now, the Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah extend this kula further. Allah reciting tashlumim for as many tfilos as one missed at one time. Yesh b'forshim shafil lo yispal tfilos harbe. L'kulan yesh lan tashlumim. You could be mashlim no matter how many tfilos you missed. V'heim oimim shemisha yatov tzachayla. Let's say somebody was sick, or he was in prison, or got out of the hospital. You should call tefillah shifsid. He can daven all the tefillas that he missed. The Shulchan Aruch rules, in accordance with Rishonim such as Tosfos and the Rambam, that one may not do tashlumim in these cases. Rather, one may only recite tashlumim for the tefillah which immediately preceded the current one. Nevertheless, he writes that it is appropriate to recite them as voluntary tefillah with a stipulation in order to fulfill his obligation, according to those who hold that there's still tashlumim in such a case. Ain't tashlumim el tefillah smucha b'vad. Shim tov lo yispal shachos v'lo mincha, yispal arvish shtayim, achron lo tashlumim mincha, aval shachos ein lo tashlumim. Means if he missed Shachris and Mincha, now when he davens Ma'ariv, he should daven 2, the first one for Ma'ariv and the second one for the Mincha he missed. But the Shachris that he missed is gone. He's lost it. Afal pishein tashlumim, el tefillah smucha lo tefillah, utfilas acher shehifsid ein lem tashlumim. And he says the tefillahs that you missed have no tashlumim. If he wants to daven that chakras that he missed as a donative tefillah and add something new, he says it's correct to do such a thing. The Mishnah Berurah clarifies that even if one recited the tefillah in the interim, for example, he forgot Ma'ariv, but did recite chakras. He still may not recite tashlumim for the one that was forgotten, unless it was the immediately preceding one. The Mishnah Berurah also explains the details of the voluntary tefillah. U'adin afilu mispalul mincha, gam ken lo yachol hashlim be'erev avur chakras. Daklal de lo tiknu hashlam rak bizman tefillah smuch Allah. You can't jump 2 tefillahs. You got to do it in the one next to it. But you should make it tonight if you're trying to catch up these tefillahs that you missed. Because of the opinions we saw, the Rabbeinu Yonah, the Bahag, despite the recommendation to recite a voluntary nedava, the Piskei Tshuva quotes the Chayodim, who writes that nowadays it is preferable not to recite any additional tefillos, since one will not likely have the required kavanah. Kvar kosav achai adam, shebizmanenu yesh limno min mispal tefillas nedava. We shouldn't do this donative tefillah business. Even though there's a machlokes here, im chayv lispalim lo, tam ispalim nedava, tzarich sheyeh batuach shemachavin b'mereishel l'seifa. A davening that's going to be a donative davening, he has to have kavanah like that from the beginning to end. There's nobody like that today. Ad kan daito. So said the Chayyim. Rav Danziger, he lived like 1750, something like that. So if it didn't exist in his time, it certainly doesn't exist now. Ken yeshlinog b'shev al taisa, or better sit and be silent than do something active. And that, I believe, is the general minhag, that we do tashlumim for the preceding davening only. And this business of the two davenings or other davenings that people miss, we don't necessarily do it b'toras nedava. Any comments on any of this so far?
I guess according to the opinion that you do many tefillos according to Nadava. The question is, like, if you get out of the hospital, how many do you do? I mean, if you've been there for a week, you haven't davened, do you do 21 Shmoneh Esrei? I mean, according to that opinion, seems like it's a little far-fetched.
It seems from the Chayyim we don't do this minhag anymore.
Yeah, but that's the,
You
I
don't
guess,
do
right,
it.
that's,
That's why they brought that, because the Pischei Tshuva says that Bisman Hazeh, we don't. I wasn't aware of people doing that.
no, I'm talking about according to the Shulchan Aruch, where he says that if you want to recite them, all you missed, you can do all of them that you missed. And then the question is, how many is that? And do you really mean all that you missed? But of course, you're right. According to Mishnah Berurah, it's clear we wouldn't do it.
We wouldn't do it.
Tshuva, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like, Yaakov, that people would keep track. They were in the hospital for 5 days. They missed 15 tefillos, and they would be mashlim them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. We're not noyeg this way, but it's a fascinating halacha. What about tashlumim on Shabbos and Yomim Tovim? The institution of tashlumim is meaningful because tefillah is considered a request for rachamim. Now, using this logic, Tosfos writes that the possibility of tashlumim does not apply to missing musaf, which was instituted solely in place of the korban musaf, which was the additional offering brought on Shabbos, and does not contain rachamim. Says Tosfos in Brachas, Lo boyim tov lo yispal tefillas musaf. We don't need this business of tashlumim for musaf. The vaderim yispal ba'arbis. You don't say Mariv twice if you missed Musaf. How could you read about the Karbonos and the Zman Musaf is passed? The words of our mouths should be like the cows that used to be sacrificed. We certainly are not doing korbanos anymore. There's no concept that the time has passed, so the sacrifice is gone regarding other tefillos, because other tefillos are rachmi. And that's how the Shulchan Aruch paskins. There's no tashlumim if you missed musaf. In addition to quoting the explanation given above for why tashlumim may not be employed when musaf is forgotten, the Mishnah Berurah adds that one cannot perform tashlumim for a previous tefillah in conjunction with musaf. Thus, one who did not recite shachris before the latest time may not recite additional Shmoneh Esrei following his recitation of musaf. You have to wait until mincha to recite the tashlumim. You can't say two musafs. It's not going to work for Hashlama. So, for example, if you forgot chakras and you daven musaf, and let's say you davened early Shabbos and there's still Zman chakras, you can daven chakras, even though you're doing it after musaf. Regarding tashlumim, you cannot recite, you cannot be mashlim musaf. The Yalkut Yosef adds that the ne'ilah recite at the end of Yom Kippur has the same status as Musaf with respect to Tashlumim when it's omitted. Chemisha nenas lo yispal tfilas nila b'Yom Kippur. The over aynas achar zman tefillah. Ein l'tfilah zu Tashlumim. Whatever was preventing people from davening passed, but it's no longer zman tfilas nila anymore. There's no Tashlumim. The dina kedin tfilas musaf shein lo Tashlumim. An intriguing situation surrounding the halacha of Tashlumim arises when a person actually prays the proper tefillah within its time, but he neglects to recite it properly. Within the laws of tefillah, there are a number of circumstances in which a person is required to repeat the Amidah because he has omitted critical additions or adjustments. What if a person fails to repeat the Amidah within the proper time frame? How does this repetition interact with the principles of Tashlumim? Specifically, what is the halacha when one cannot correct what he missed even when reciting Tashlumim? For example, what should one do if he forgets to insert Yalav v'Yavo, which is required Rosh Chodesh or Chol Hamoed, at Mincha on Rosh Chodesh, if the next night is not Rosh Chodesh, right? Let's say it's one day Rosh Chodesh, Tuesday, and it's Mincha, and you didn't say Yalav v'Yavo in your Shmona Esrei for Mincha. And now tonight, it's Tuesday night, but it's not Rosh Chodesh anymore. Or forgets to recite the middle bracha of Shmona Esrei for Shabbos at Shabbos Mincha. You didn't say Makadesh HaShabbos at Shabbos Mincha. In both of these cases, you must repeat the Shmona Esrei. But since the next tefillah is no longer Rosh Chodesh or Shabbos, he can't rectify his mistake. Tosfos cites a machlokas among the Rishonim whether he should daven Tashlumim. Kasav Rabbeinu Yehuda, im tov lo yizkir Rosh Chodesh b'mincha, lo yispalo od b'layla. You shouldn't repeat it at night. The lama yispalo od. Why should you do it? Arek var yispalo kol tfilas ha-mincha b'bod yom. You daven the mincha. Levad Rosh Chodesh lo yizkir. You didn't mention Rosh Chodesh. Im kenei marviach klum. You don't gain anything in Yachzer v'Yispal Motzei Rosh Chodesh. Harei lo yaskir od tfilas Rosh Chodesh. You're not going to mention Rosh Chodesh again at that night because it's not Rosh Chodesh. Shmona Esrei k'ra Yispalo. You already davened Shmona Esrei. But miu b'ravilfis lo mashma came. Dafilu heichad eina marviach klum. Even though you're not going to gain anything, matzrich lispalo pamacheres. He required you to say another Shmona Esrei. V'zel l'shono. Shekasav ahad komer shemavdil b'rishona ve'enu mavdil b'shmiya. We talked about on Motzei Shabbos, you have Tashlumim, but you only say Atachonantanu in the first one. V'im lo hivdil b'rishona v'hivdil b'shniya, shniya also lo, rishona also lo. We said the second counts, the first doesn't count. The boy lagdumi tefillah shniya b'reisha dichavi. You should have davened the second one first because that's the obligatory one. V'kivin de lo avdil b'reisha. You didn't make Avdol in the first. V'avdil b'basrai, so you made the Avdol in the second. Gali daita d'ach basrai seichoiva. You showed that the second one was the obligatory way. Hilchach, boy l'mader l'tzuzim nachrit. You have to daven again. Kidei lagdim choivas shaita b'reisha. You have to daven the choivas ma'ariv again. The avdil b'tarvayu. You made atach and on both. Aval gav lo mibulei l'meividach. You don't have to do that. Lo machuyiv laduri. At least you don't have to repeat the first one esrei. V'lo avdil afil b'chadam inoin. And if you didn't make Avdallah in any of them, lo madrinan lay. The Tanya tov lo hiskar Avdallah b'chon adas ein machzirin. So it's not one of the missing things that make you repeat the Shmona Esrei. That shiach loymer lakos ad kan l'shoynoi. Alma de matzrich lispal zim nachriti afagav shlo yachzor v'yispal pam shniya yoser b'shoyna. He wanted to use that as a proof that if you missed Mincha Rosh Chodesh, and you didn't say Yalav over there, you should say another you should repeat Shmona Esrei. The Rif, who was the Rav Ilfus, cited by Tosfos here, rules that if someone omitted the Shabbos Mincha Mida, the Ato Echad V'Shimcha Echad, and then attempting to recite Tashlumim, recited Atachon Tanu in his second Amida of Ma'ariv, instead of the first, he must repeat the Tashlumim Tefillah again, despite the fact that he's repeating the exact same Amida that he recited the first time. This appeared to be the ruling of the Gemara itself in source 16 above. The Gemara later challenges the ruling without providing an answer. So the fact that the Ruf ruled in accordance with the ruling of the Gemara is significant. Tosfos suggests that according to the Rif, just as here, nothing is added in the additional Amida, because it's not Rosh Chodesh, it's not Shabbos. So too, when one forgets the brach of Shabbos and Shabbos Mincha or Yalav Yavo, one recites Tashlumim, even though one has not gained anything from the recitation, more than the original recitation, which was considered an insufficient tefillah. So it's evident from Tosfos that Rishonim disagree whether one recites Tashlumim in both of these cases. The omission of a bracha of Shabbos at Shabbos Mincha, or Yalav Yov at Rosh Chodesh Mincha. Rabbeinu Yehuda holds that one would not recite Tashlum in this case, while the Rif, according to Tosfos, holds that you would. The Shulchan Aruch rules in accordance with the Rif, but adding that one should recite the Shemona Esrei as a Tfilas Nedava. Tov Mincha Shel Shabbos, Mispal Yud Ches, Lo Yizkir Shel Shabbos. You forgot and you didn't say Mekadosh Shel Shabbos. Mispal B'Motzei Shabbos Shtayim. In Ma'ariv, you should say two Shemona Esreis. The first Shemona Esrei, you should say Atachon Tanu. The second one, Eino Mavdil B'Shniya. The Yispal also B'Toras Nedava. You should daven it as a donative davening. But you don't have to put something new in there. Same thing would apply in the Ma'ariv that immediately follows a mincha of Rosh Chodesh where you did not recite the Yalav Yavo. Where the second Ma'ariv, of course, you would say without Yalav Yavo. The Mishnah Berurah explains that the reason that one should have in mind to recite is that Tfilas Nedava, without reciting additional requests, is that some Rishonim disagree with the approach of Tosfos, according to which Tfilas Tashlumi must be recited. Right? The Achronim discuss a similar case in which someone forgot to recite Tein Talum Water at Mincha on Friday. Remember, according to Mogen Avram, this case is similar to the case of forgetting Yalav Yavo at Mincha, since in both cases, one cannot recite the omitted section at Ma'ariv. Because if you missed Mincha, let's say we're talking about Mincha afternoon, and the Shemona Esrei has the same Talamoter, and you missed it, you didn't say it, and it requires you to repeat the Shemona Esrei. So now Ma'ariv of Shabbos doesn't have the same bracha. It has only Mekadosh Shabbos. So you can't recite the omitted section. The Rabbeinu Yehuda would hold that one does not recite Tashlum at Ma'ariv. The Rif would hold that one does. And the Shulchan Aruch would rule that one should recite it second Shemona Esrei Friday night. Which also are omissions that require you to repeat Shemona Esrei. However, Rav Chaim Soloveitchik writes in his Chidushei Agrach that mentioning Yalav Yavo differs from mentioning the same Talamoter. And in the latter case, all would agree that one should recite Tashlum. B'shachach v'lomer Talamoter b'mincha be'erev Shabbos. Da'adin de mispal arvi shtayim. You do say two Ma'arivs. V'avte v'arvis lo yaskir Talamoter. There's no Talamoter. For hikshuva toisvus b'shachach v'lomer Yalav Yavo. Ma moyel, what does it help? Ma shispal arvi shtayim. There's no even shachshav quiet or not Rosh Chodesh. Ve'no amer Yalav Yavo. Ulam. So that, he says, is a good zushtel. Aval b'talu motor ein la'akshos came. B'shum b'talu motor hu miseder atfila. Ukishlo amar havi mishan mimad beya shetavu chachamim. Saying talu motor is put inside one of the key brachos. Uki'ilu lo yispala klal. Aval yala v'yava rak chiyuv askorehi. There's no change in the nusach of one of the existing 18 brachas. It's something that comes in from nowhere and gets stuck in there. It's a haskara. V'lo kalo yispalel. You can't say that it's not like you didn't daven. Rakshis chayv yispal shtayim k'dei sheyasker laviyavo. V'ken shaper makshu mamanik yishmal avishtaim. You want to say it again because you want to have a tashlumi because you want to say the Yalavi didn't say it. But if you can't say it, but if you can say it, you might as well say it. According to Rav Chaim, Paint al Motor is considered to be an integral part of the Shmon Esrei, more so than Yalav Yovel. Therefore, one who forgot Tal Motor must recite Tashlumin for him if he did not remember it till it's too late to repeat it. Meaning, if you still have time before the day is over, you should repeat the Shmon Esrei, like you would, like, let's say in Shachris. You didn't say Yalav Yovel. You repeat the Shmon Esrei right away. We're saying that someone forgot, and now you're at Mincha time. So that is this debate. So Rav Tzvi Pesach Chrank, however, disagrees with Rav Chaim and holds that mentioning Talamoter is considered part of the order of Tefillah, even less than Yalav Yovel. He supports his contention from the halacha that Talamoter must be recited during Shomei Tefillah, which is not the case for Yalav Yovel. Shomati b'shem Agayin Rav Chaim, Al Mishim Yispalo b'mincha erev Shabbos v'shachach lo yizkir Talamoter v'nizkar b'leil Shabbos. Shebezeh kula am moidi. Everybody admitted shetzarich lispalo arvi shtayim avol pisha b'tfilas arvi shalol Shabbos benkach lo yazkir Talamoter. Everybody agreed that you have to daven tashlumim twice, even though there's no Talamoter there. Umachalik be'inyan zeh, and Reb Chaim made a chiluk between Yalav Yovo, shehi einena b'chlal madbea bracha, ben askor Talamoter shehi madbea bracha. Because shlo yizkir Talamoter avi kimishana b'madbea bracha, l'divrei ki lo yispal klal. There may be other cases in which no option exists for tashlumin. The Mishnah Berurah claims that if one forgot to recite Yalav Yovel on Rosh Chodesh at Mincha, Friday afternoon, when Shabbos is not Rosh Chodesh, one cannot utilize the Shulchan Aruch suggestion, since the halacha is that one does not offer a korban nadav on Shabbos. So to say that it should be a tefillas nadav, you can't do because you can't offer donative korbanos on Shabbos. Therefore, tefillas nadav cannot be recited. It says the Mishnah Berurah, Imchal Rosh Chodesh Be'erev Shabbos, Vay Rosh Chodesh Rak Yom Echad, B'shachach B'minch Lasker Shel Rosh Chodesh V'niskar Achar Shechashecha, Ein La'ashkil Klam. You shouldn't do tashlumim below Shabbos. Even they moil klum v'rak sheyachol yispal b'nadav and yispal tefillah b'nadav b'Shabbos. The Yalkut Yosef offers a different solution in this case that does not involve reciting a full tashlumim. In his opinion, one should have intent to fulfill the tashlumim together with the bracha me'ein sheva, recited by the shliach tzibur on Friday night after the silent Amidah. It is possible that the Aruch HaShulchan may take a third position. The Aruch HaShulchan writes that in principle, the halacha is in accordance with the Rif, that one should recite Tashlumim when omitting a specific section of the Shmona Esrei, such as Yalav Yovel. However, the Shulchan Aruch writes that this tefillah should be recited as a voluntary one in order to accommodate the other opinion, according to which a Tashlum is not recited. Using this logic, it is quite possible that the Aruch HaShulchan would hold that in the case that they had reciting Tashlumim on Friday night for omitting Yalav Yovel at Mincha Rosh Chodesh, one should follow the actual halacha and recite Ma'ariv twice as tashlumim and not be concerned with the issue of the voluntary tefillah on Shabbos. Says the Yalkut Yosef, Lefichach lo yispal tefillas tashlumim, eli chavim b'vrocha mein sheva sheshomea mashlech tzibur v'day lo b'kach. He can have intent when we say the Magen Avot after the Vayichulu and that's sufficient. He also summarizes these tashlumim as it relates to Shabbos. Ta nenas lo yispal mincha b'erev Shabbos. If you missed mincha erev Shabbos, b'yispal arvish time shel Shabbos. You daven ma'ariv twice. Harishona arvis v'shniel tashlumim shel mincha. V'mushliach tzibur ba'arvis shel Shabbos. If you're the chazan Friday night, for his own purposes, if he missed mincha, he could have kavana during Magen Avot. So that fulfills his own requirement. Person didn't daven Friday night. If he made a mistake and he said Ata Kidashta in one of them, Yotza. The Koshkin and Mom Vishtem Ata Kidashta. Shatoy Betfila Shabbos Ve'echlif Shel Zu Bezu Yotza. If you miss, you switch around the nusach of the tfilos, it's okay. If you miss the Shachris, Shmona Esrei Yispal Mincha Shtayim V'yomer B'Shtem Ato Echad. V'im Tov Omer B'achas Menu B'Shtem Yisbach Moshe Ata Kidashta Yotza. What about women and tashlumim? Let's just learn this halacha, and we'll be finished with the sugi of tashlumim. Are women subject to the halachas of tashlumim? In other words, if a woman forgets to recite shachris, assuming that she normally does she recite tashlumim at mincha? According to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, Sai B'Alichos Bas Yisrael, she indeed recites tashlumim. Moreover, she should ideally recite tashlumim even if she forgets to recite mincha, assuming that she normally recites it, by reciting Ma'ariv twice. Says the Alichos Bas Yisrael, Isha sheshachal yispal tfilas mincha, olo yispal machmasoines, tov shetispal arvis, umiyad lachar siyum tfilas shmona esrei, tispal also shuv bavor mincha kedin tfilas tashlumim. She should daven Ma'ariv and two shmona esreis. Buadin lashlim tfilas shachros b'min. Kain Kosovli Agon Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, so had written him Rav Shlomo Zalman. But I knew after made a regular spell Arvis Bikfias, even if she normally doesn't daven Ma'ariv. Rav Shlomo Zalman on the footnote says that a woman who doesn't have time to recite Mincha before lighting Shabbos candles should recite Ma'ariv twice. And the Mishnah didn't make any distinction between someone who normally davens Ma'ariv and not. The Isha Yisrael, though, cited Rav Shlomo differently, holding that if a woman does not normally recite Ma'ariv, she should recite Ma'ariv only once in this case. Would a woman who does not normally recite Ma'ariv be permitted to recite Tashlumim for omitting Minchat Shachris the next morning? Would this be considered the next tefillah, such as Tashlumim would be affected? Rav Shlomo Zalman rules that in this case that this is not allowed, as Shachris is never considered next tefillah after Mincha, even for women who do not normally recite Ma'ariv. Nizkar rak lemachrash leispalel etmol Mincha. If she remembers in the morning that she didn't daven Mincha, surely spalel tashlum achar shmona esrei Shachris. She may not daven a second shmona esrei in the Shachris. Elim tirtza b'toras nadava im chidush. She would have to come up with some novel thought and daven it b'toras nadava. On the other hand, Rav Menachem Nissel cites Rav Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg as allowing a woman to recite Tashlumim Shabbos when she did not recite Mincha. A woman who is unable to daven Mincha but does not usually daven Ma'ariv is advised to daven Ma'ariv and then recite another Shmona Esrei as Tashlumim. This is true even if her motive for davening Ma'ariv is only to enable her to recite the Tashlumim Tefillah for the missed Mincha. She's not, however, obligated to do so. She also has the option of reciting Tashlumim Tefillah the next morning when she davens Shachris, since it is her first obligatory Tefillah since she missed Mincha. Shalti Sagon of Chaim Pinchas Scheinberg, because of Lee, and he wrote, V'chol lashlim b'tefillah Shachris, for her, who normally doesn't daven Ma'ariv, but she missed a Mincha, l'gabi dideh l'choshev over zman shtei tefillas. The time had not passed. Okay, Yeshar Koyach, we will next week, go back to the laws of the Shliach Tzibur and the whole Shatz davening. And then Tachanun to follow. Daf Yomi tomorrow, Mario,